All right, welcome everybody to the How to Sell Insurance podcast. My name is Ryan Federico, here with my esteemed colleagues, because we just steamed our clothes for this conference. Mr. Ashton DeLango Lunday, the pride of Punch in Pensacola, Florida. Mr. 100K in 100 Days, claim to fame. Watch for that podcast episode coming soon. Also, Mr. Keith Fonseca, DJ Debt Free, the man, the myth, the legend.
Twinsies.
You have seen him on many social media posts because the guy's a social media god. We have one of the best looking people on the planet with us, Mr. Tim Penso, formerly of Boston, Massachusetts, now enjoying the sweet life of South Beach, Miami, Florida. Loving it. I gotta hear this story. For some of you guys, like if you get involved in insurance, you see people with some flashy stuff, right? You see people with like the Rolexes, you see people with the cars, stuff like that. And for like me personally, I'm not a fan of cars, right? They don't do it for me. I think of like expensive cars as like maintenance and just a pain in the ass. And I got little kids, and they're gonna mess it all up, So I was like, but then there's some people who like are driven by like, this is my dream. And I remember talking to Tim about like how much he loved cars and how much he loved specifically Ferraris, and was able to grow a huge business in the insurance industry, get himself a custom-built Ferrari. I guess they're all custom-built, but a brand new custom-built Ferrari, mobbing that thing around South Beach. And I just found out like 6 months after he got it, maybe not even 6 months after he got it, sold that thing for 100 G's profit, 100 G's in the bank account. Cool. Maybe you want to get into a different business, than insurance, selling that. So I got to hear the story, man. I know how much you love cars. I know how much the Ferrari was a dream and like it pushed you to be motivated. And now you sold it, you made $100,000. Like, how did that happen, man?
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate you all having me on the podcast.
Absolutely.
Very fortunate. I heard a lot of good things about it. But yeah, it was always a dream of mine. Since I was like in the second grade, I said I always wanted one. Kind of little backstory about it. When my dad passed away when I was in the second grade, one of the last things that he bought me was a game called Need for Speed.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the one with the yellow Lamborghini on the front?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the dream was a Lamborghini in the beginning, but when I was 16, I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and so my knees lock up. But most people don't know this. The Lamborghinis, you can't fully extend your legs in there. Oh. So I started looking at Ferraris, and I was like, wow, the Ferrari is way more comfortable.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I went from, and as it got closer to the decision, I was like Lamborghini, Ferrari, and then eventually it was just, I landed on the Ferrari, and it was just like, I started studying the background, the history of Enzo Ferrari and his passion. He actually wanted to be in like orchestra, and he actually that field, and he loved the sound of music, and that's why he built the best sounding Ferrari motor. But yeah, winded up building one of those. Fortunately, thanks to the financial services industry, built it back in April 2021 during the pandemic. 2020, it was the last V8 twin turbo before they went to a hybrid. They only made 3,000. The one I had was one of 1,400 because I had the Spider. And out of the red Ferrari and tan combo, that's such a classic, iconic Ferrari color. So there's probably only 300 or 400 of those. And then, I drove it hard.
Hold on a minute. So you got it in April.
Yep.
And you sold it like yesterday.
No, ordered April 2021. It came in May 5th, 2022, and I signed the paperwork this last Monday.
Okay.
Signed the paperwork.
So 3 months.
Yeah.
And how many miles did you put on it?
They basically paid me $27 per mile to drive it. I put 3,500 miles on it. So
3,500 miles.
Yeah.
He was mashing this Ferrari. Yeah. God, I love it.
Yeah, 850. It's a crazy experience.
Unless you're like me and your kids are just going to mess it up. You're just worried about hitting something or scratching something.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why I got rid of it. I was always thinking about the car.
All right, so this is what we want to get into. So you get this car. It's a dream. You've been grinding in this industry. We're going to talk about some of the things that you did so we can help people get better with selling insurance on this podcast. But you've been grinding. You get the achievement. You're like, yes, I'm custom ordering a Ferrari. So how does it come about that you get to sell it for 100 G's?
So
Than you paid?
it's funny, like people always tell you, like, you know, whatever path you're on, like you guys are very successful in life. You've had success in the past before you got in the industry, but you know when you're on the path, like people are just super negative, right?
Yeah.
Super negative. So people are like, oh, you know, you can't get a brand new Ferrari. People would always tell me that. And then the power of suggestion comes in. If you read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, I'm in the dealership one day and I'm looking at a Ferrari, and the GM goes, he's like, why don't you get that one? I was like, well, I don't want that one because it doesn't have yellow brakes and doesn't have the red stitching. And he's like, man, if you're so damn picky, why don't you just build one? And I'm just like, you mean a guy like me could build a Ferrari from where I come from? Like in your mind, you're like, you know, never thought you were like worthy enough. And then it's just one of those things that just started happening. And then you're like, you know, holy, you know what? Like, am I really about to? Did this really happen? And then I really didn't even believe it until like I was driving the car when we went on our first drive, Paige and I. And like I was like, all right, wow, this is now my car, because so many people tell you your whole life that you can't do that, and they don't give Ferraris to you have to buy a used one and you can't build a new one. So you hear so much of that. You don't hear a lot of people saying like, oh man, that's great for you, man. Can't wait to see you, you know, in that, man. Good for you, congrats. I don't think I heard that like once, right? Until it was like, yeah, of course. Until it was like in, and people were like, holy shit, like, dude, that's amazing, congratulations. And so then I was driving it, and you know, one of the reasons, and just for the record, I just ordered another brand new one, but the cool thing is it's about 2 to 3 years out. But I realized that the rest of my life, I was just talking to Ayers about this, the rest of my life has not caught up to that, right? Like I have a couple properties and things like that, but the way that I had the Ferrari, I didn't have it the way that I wanted it. What I mean by that is like, I was like, wow, there's still a lot more other important things that need to happen before this. Like I have a garage that I was keeping it in, but that garage is like 25 minutes from my office, and they're so mile sensitive. And I think the biggest reason of why I wanted to get rid of it is because we talk so much about delayed gratification as a culture. The thing that helped me get it is exactly why I wanted to get rid of it. Because it's like, and for everybody listening, for you guys, every time you make a sacrifice in your life, I personally cannot think of a time that it did not pay me big down the road. So, and I didn't want to do it, and I was talking to Edward about it, and he's like, the fact that you don't want to do it is the reason why you should do it. And that's why I did it. And taking that money that I'm making, and Tim and I are going to be doing a deal together. So I'll be making like 16% on like 350 grand. So it's like, it's money working for you. So instead of paying for a Ferrari, I'll have more money coming in and just keep sacrificing, and then, you know, just keep sacrificing, right?
Why not?
We all do it.
Well, so let's talk about this. So one of the things that we always ask guests on the when they come on the podcast, number one, how'd you get into this business? Number one. Number two, when you're in the field, you're meeting with clients, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you in the field, or like the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to you in the field? Like I fell through a porch in Las Vegas. Keith split his pants going into a house, you know. Ayers got like almost arrested, pulled over, peeing in a Gatorade bottle, driving down the road.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's what we're going to be doing. So
awesome.
How'd you get into this business, and what's the worst thing to ever happen to you selling insurance in the field?
So I'll start with the worst thing that ever happened. I was like my first week, super broke, super poor. It was wintertime, upstate New York. I had one sweater. I had one nice sweater that I could wear, just one. And I wore it every day, and people were like, dude, you got to stop wearing that sweater. It's like starting to smell. And I would spray it with Axe. Like, you remember Axe? Spraying it with Axe every day. And so I get out of this house, I get out of the car, and we pull up to like this, you know, nice trailer, and nice guy, and this just huge dog, like huge, like as tall as this table. And he's like, oh yeah, he's friendly, he won't bite you. Next thing you know, this dog is on me, on my arm, rips my sweater. Oh. I'm like, oh man. Like, so that was one of the worst. That was probably one of the worst, you know. And now to this day, people are like, oh yeah, he's friendly, he won't bite. And it's like, you don't know that. You don't know that for sure. You don't know that. So that's one of the worst things. I have been kicked out of houses before, but that's not that bad. That's just, you know, it's part of the biz. That's happened like once or twice. But yeah, the dog definitely, the dog getting at me was the worst.
So how did you get into the business?
How did I get in the business? So I was working at the mall, retail. Started off at Michael Kors, $11 an hour, just hustling. And then I went to made a lateral movement, went from $11 an hour to $13 an hour at the Art of Shaving. You guys remember the Art of Shaving store?
Yeah. I do.
Yeah, it was really cool store. You know, I really liked it. Got to wear a suit, 3-piece every day, suit, tie, vest, the whole thing. Made me feel sophisticated. And so I had a friend there that was my roommate, and we worked at GNC together, the vitamin shop. And he goes, hey man, this guy that I know just started selling insurance, and he just got back from Iraq. He was in the Marines, and he's doing insurance now, and he's killing it. And he's been talking to me about going over there and work there. And I'm like, insurance? You know how the Smith brothers always used to say, it's like things are bad, but they're not that bad.
Not that bad.
Insurance is like nails on a chalkboard. So then he's like, man, I can get you an interview and all that. And I was like, all right, you know, whatever, cool. And then I was like, I texted him. I'm like, I'm not gonna. I'm like, I'm not going. And now this guy, you know, thank God him and I had a connection, because, you know, him and I both lost our dad from a suicide. Mm-hmm. So you going through that, you would almost guarantee that this guy's not going to steer you wrong, because you guys went through something super traumatic. So he texts me and he goes, listen, man, I got you this interview. I know this can change your life. Like, this is for you. It may not be for me, but I know it's for you. He goes, please just go. He goes, if you don't want anything to do with it after, that's fine. He goes, please just go. And I remember he never got mad at me, upset with me, and he came at me in that moment, and I was just like, all right, you know, I didn't want to let him down. He was 10 years older than me. I had a lot of respect for him, still do. And actually brought him to LeBlanc with me. You met him.
Yeah.
John.
Yeah.
John, my buddy John.
Great guy.
Yeah, great guy. So forever loyal to him, do anything for him. It's changed my life. And so he pushed me to go. I went, and you know, coming up on 8 years later, here we are.
Wow.
And what'd your agency do last year, roughly?
About $2 million.
Nice.
A little over 2.
Yeah. Such a blessing to, you know, have a story that, you know, didn't end in necessarily full success there, but you were able to find the place that you fit in this industry, and find a home to be super successful enough to grow other businesses, grow a real estate portfolio, buy a Ferrari and sell it for $100K. You know, like, why not? Man, awesome. I'm not gonna live that thing down, man. I'm gonna tell that story to like all the agents that I'm recruiting. And anyway, we won't go there. Here's the topic that we want to talk about today. It's a topic that I know Tim is passionate about, something that he's helped me a ton with, something that I think he can bring tremendous value to everybody who's tuning into the podcast, because no matter what area of this industry you're in, whether you're in a captive insurance agency, whether you're selling final expense, whether you're doing mortgage protection, whether you're doing life insurance, doesn't matter. The more clients you get, the better off you're going to be. And the more clients that you can get who want to talk to you, the better off you're going to be. And the easiest way to do that is by getting referral business. And Tim came on to one of our conference calls about a year ago and just dropped some knowledge about like this stuff that really isn't like, there isn't some super strategy to it outside of just doing it and having the mentality of I'm going to get referrals. And so, you know, we hear a lot in this business, especially where we're at. We're in a leads-based insurance marketing organization. We buy leads. And we hear people come in all the time and they're like, man, I got to spend all this money on leads. And we all view it as investing. And we're like, hey, if I buy 10 leads and I write 4 applications, I know a 40% close ratio, I'm going to be crushing. Well, what if you could buy 10 leads and you could write 40 applications, because you could get 10 referrals that are second, third, fourth, fifth level out of those 4 sales that you made, right? You got a sister from the first sale that you made. You got a coworker from the second sale that you made. You got a spouse from the third sale that you made. And then you ask them for referrals, and you got their coworkers and their friends and their other extended family. So we want to talk about, how do we ask for referrals? How do we get more business from referrals? And so I want to give the floor to Tim Penso, who's probably one of the best people I've ever heard talk about asking for referrals and strategy there. And then I'll share some of the ways that I do it. Keith will share some of the ways that he does it. Ashton will share some of the ways that he does it. But let's turn the floor over to Tim real quick.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It all comes down to how you ask. You know, a lot of people are like, hey, is there, they'll ask a yes/no question, right? A yes/no question is a question that they can only answer yes/no for those of you tuning in. But when you tweak the question to, you know, who's the first person that you'd like to do this for? Who's the first person you'd like to do? It's more of an assumptive approach. It's the who. It's not, hey, is there anybody that you'd like to do this for? They could be like, no. or but if you're like, hey, who's the first person you'd like to do that for? You'd obviously want to make sure your brother is taken care of. Where does he live again? And then you just like look down. So it's just that simple way of just being super assumptive. That's the easiest thing without getting too far in the weeds.
So where are you asking this in the sales process, right? Are you asking this up front? Are you asking it after you do the first application? Are you asking it at the policy delivery?
The very good question. The very end, after everything's done, you have them take their phone out, and you just say, if I'm sitting with Keith, I'd be like, hey Keith, any questions about what we did here today? Hey, I just want you to take out your phone, so you could put my phone number in your phone. And now when you do that, they now have their contact list right in front of them. Right. So it's a very calculated move. You give them your phone number, have them save you, let them know, reassure them anything you need, anything, God forbid anything happens. I hope that I don't hear from you, but if I do, I'll be there for you. And I always just reassure my clients that right. It's all. We get paid great money, but at the end of the day, you're one of the first people that they call when shit hits the fan. Right, they're calling their immediate family, and then they're calling you, wondering where their money's at. So we address that, exchange phone numbers, and then I'm like, hey, any questions about what we did here today? I'm like, no. And then I ask them, hey, what was your favorite part about what we did here? And sometimes they're like, you were pretty cool. But hey, what about the program you got? What did you like most about it? And now they're telling you, and they're reassuring the value, and this will help out with retention in business.
Yep.
Right.
They're reselling themselves on the product.
100%. So then then you just get it, and then that's when you're like, hey, basically there's a longer script for this, and if anybody wants it, just reach out. But it's you end it with like, hey, now who's the first person that you'd like to do this for? The same thing that you did today. Who's the first person you'd like to do that for? You obviously want to start with your mother, make sure she's taken care of, so you're not stuck with that burden. Is she local or is she out of state? Right.
Love that. Is she local or is she out of state?
Now you're super.
Would you want to do this for your mother?
The worst thing ever.
I'm sure you would want to do this for your mother. Is she local or is she out of state?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And asking's always better. I mean, even if you do ask a yes, no question, I've done it before. You have to start somewhere. That's better than not asking at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Let's go to Keith for some of the ways. Everybody knows Keith does a lot of debt-free life, DJ debt-free, right? And that. I have watched the referrals come in just from the energy of you putting out into the world that like I'm helping people get out of debt, right? So what are some of the things like your philosophy on generating referrals, or do clients call you that you helped with debt-free life and start saying, hey, I got a family member who wants to get out of debt, or like how does that work?
Well, first off, I try to treat everybody the same, right? Whether they're writing a $20 a month policy or a $5,000 a month policy, it's super important for them to know that they're, being treated as if they're my number one client, right? And so when they feel that and they feel that connection, I just got a call from a client. How's Denver? How's the conference? Like, tell me about it when you get back. So in creating that relationship, it's almost natural for them to start to wonder, how can I get more people to connect with Keith? Because he did such a great job for me, right? So of course I'm doing, a lot of asking, who else would you like to do? Put this in your phone. Make sure you put my number, make sure you send it to them and they have my number, because God forbid something happens to you, they're gonna need to reach out to me. And so some of those folks have started reaching out to me and saying, hey, I heard what you did for my mom. She was really happy. Would you mind spending some time with me? Right? How much would it cost for you to spend time with me? Oh, nothing. Not at all. It'd be more than my pleasure. So making sure that people know that I'm available no matter what. And then what Tim said is so crucial. What did you like most about what you got in place? Well, when you're writing a debt-free life thing and you're helping people get debt-free, the real question of, who do you know that needs some freedom from debt? And they just pop. Like there's a limitless amount of people that need that freedom from debt. Would you mind sending them this quick video? Because it's a little bigger of a process and I don't want them coming into it feeling like I'm gonna sell them something. But send them this video, tell them about your experience, and maybe let's set up a time for the three of us to talk about it. And they love that. It just sort of takes down the barrier and makes it a little less of a sales sense for them and more of a, hey, we can collect and connect on this.
Totally. Man, and just being available and continuing to put out there. I read actually on a forum this morning. A lot of you guys who watch this are on some sort of an insurance forum on Facebook or on some sort of social media, and there was somebody who posted on there like, "Have any of you ever bought $1,000 in leads and not made any sales?" or something like that, right? I felt bad for the person because they're probably at a company with terrible leads. Hashtag come join us. But then there was like all of these comments from all these independent agents that were just like, I haven't bought a lead ever and I've done really well, and I just let people know what I do. And there's a portion to that of like not being a secret agent and not like hiding what you do. And there isn't anybody more proud of what they do than Keith Fonseca posting, I help people get out of debt all the time, every day, all over social media. Here's this client that we're helping. Here's this client that we're helping. So Ashton, what are some of the ways that you ask for referrals from people?
Yeah, I think for me, that's definitely a part where I'm not really that great. I don't typically ask for a lot of referrals. My strategy, like we're talking about with the other episode with Brian, is really working through those objections to maximize my profits. For me, I can spend roughly $1,200 on leads and write 20,000 plus in business in a month. So for me, I focus more on how can I overcome objections. But when I do get referrals, it's been more on things of cash value based type things. So I help someone with an IUL. It's still a client of mine, and I'm writing some more business with him. But I helped him with a cash value based policy because that's what he wanted. And I get a text a few months later. He's like, "Hey," it's like, I think it's Thursday. He's like, "What are you doing on Saturday?" I was like, "Nothing right now." And he's like, "Well, we're going to have some Asian food." Like his wife's Vietnamese. I went to in person to this appointment. He's like, "Do you want to come over?" And I was like, "Sure." I was like, "Yeah, we're getting it catered to the house." I was like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "Oh, by the way, yeah, it's like my son's graduation party." I was like, "Oh, okay, from high school." And he's like, "Yeah, all of my wife's sisters and brother-in-laws, they're all going to be there. I want you to get them all cash value policies." He's like, I could try and sit there and explain it, but you'd be way better. So just come over and just talk to them all about it. I'm like, all right. And so I'm like, all right, there's going to be like a lot of people. I'm the only one not related out of all the people. And I was like, all right. So and no one knew I was coming besides the husband who invited me. So I just show up and everyone's like, "Oh, hey, who are you?" But yeah, so I mean,
I'm here to talk to you about cash value life insurance.
Yeah, surprise.
Eat your food.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but every time I've had those referrals, I've helped someone with a cash value policy, whether it's a debt-free life. I just had a debt-free life I wrote last month. And she goes, "Oh my goodness, this is so amazing. Do you have to have like a mortgage or like fill out one of these forms to do this?" And I was like, "No, not at all." She goes, "Do you mind if I like start giving your information to all my friends?" And I had about three people that just called me and it was like, "Hey, I would love to get information on this." Yeah. And was able to write a few more policies.
Yeah, that's awesome. If you build value for your clients, they're going to want to share what you do, right? So one of the things that I would say, there's two things that I do. So like after hearing Tim, talk on our base shop call, I got really passionate about referrals, and I can just say that last year, like 75% of the business that I wrote was referral business, and I love getting in with people and then just fanning that out. I love profitability. I love, I've spent less in leads. I make more money, right? It's awesome. Plus, there's no competition. Like those people aren't getting hounded by other insurance agents, right? So one of the things that I do, like the first thing that I do is I personally never ask for referrals until I've delivered a policy. That's just my personal thing. I think it's like, hey, I want you to see me twice. And that's virtual. I do everything virtual. So it's just like, I tell people in the first meeting, I'm going to get you approved. I'm going to do the job that you wanted me to do. And then we're going to meet again and I'm going to go over the policy with you, make sure you understand it. And it's at that meeting where they've seen me a second time. I've kept my word. I've got them coverage. I've shown up, again and taken time out to make sure that they knew what they had. That's when I start asking for referrals. But when I ask for referrals now, I use the emergency contact form, the emergency response form method. I didn't make this method up. I learned it, from somebody. And basically they were just like, hey, Tim, if you died who are going to be the people that are going to be involved, that are going to be calling me, that potentially I'm going to need to talk to help get this death benefit for you. Like, who's going to be involved? Oh, my wife. Okay, cool. Got it. Got her down. What happens if you guys die together? Who's going to be involved? My brother. Okay, who else might be involved? My best friend. All right, who else might be involved? My cousin, my neighbor, my coworker, like whatever. Okay, anybody else you think that like maybe if something happened, they're going to need to get in contact with me and I'm going to need to deliver this check. I'm going to need to help them. No. Okay, cool. What are their phone numbers? Got their phone number. And I'm putting this down on a sheet in their file, right? In their file. And then what I do is I call each one of those people. And I go, hey, I mean, not spouse, because they're probably there. I go, hey, Tim's brother, I just helped Tim get a policy. Here's what the policy does. It's got critical illness, it's got chronic illness, it's got cash value, like whatever it's got. And he told me that if something happened to him, you were going to be somebody who was going to be involved in maybe helping make sure that the family was protected and stuff was paid off. I want you to have my phone number. I want it to be saved in your phone, and just let me know if there's anything I can help you with. And like 6 times out of 10, they'll be like, well, how much does something like that cost? Like almost all the time, they're just like, oh, really? Like, how much does that cost? Like, I'd be interested in coverage like that. They've never heard of coverage like that. They've never heard of living benefits. They never heard of cash value, or they've heard of it and they're like, well, I want to know more about this. Like, can you tell me more about that? I've been interested, something like that. Tax-free retirement, debt-free life, like whatever it is. So I use that method, and I show up, the second time, and then I get the emergency contact form, and that's how I've written a lot of business. But now I want to talk about like the sort of most important part, right? Which is now you've gotten a referral, Tim. You've gotten referrals from somebody. How are you approaching that conversation with that referral to start off with? First to book an appointment, and then when you meet with that person. It's a little bit different than when you're working off of a lead, right? So how are you doing that?
So that's almost the easiest part, right? And I wouldn't even call it challenging, but people where they face obstacles is when they're picking them up. But once you pick them up, if you did your job correctly on the front end, it's gonna be really easy on the back end. A lot of people rush through picking up the referrals, and that's where they mess up the most, because you have to teach them what to say. You have to get them to endorse you, right? So if I picked up a referral from Keith, and he's like, yeah, hey, who's the first person you'd like to do that for? Obviously you want to start with your brother, and he gives me his brother Keith, or I'm sorry, he gives me his brother Ryan, and I'm like, I always want to call you Federico. So I was like, wait a minute, what's his first name? Well, all I know is he's Federico, right? Federico's everywhere. Check the billboards, it's everywhere. So it's like, all right, when I get the info from Keith about Ryan, I have to slowly qualify that referral. That's a qualifying process, right? So I'm going to say, so Keith, so talking about Ryan, is he married? Yep, he's married. Any kids? He's just say, yep. I'm like, all right, perfect. Like, that's a great referral so far. Okay, now what's he do for work? He says self-employed, jackpot, right? Because what do we know about self-employed people?
No work insurance.
Right? So when you get your next referral, you're like, who else do you know that's self-employed? Now you're in a self-employed network. That's how I built my first agency, my last company. It was just, self-employed people and stay-at-home moms and nurses and middle class and the backbone of America right there, right? So now you're like, now you got to get the unique story. This is one of the most important parts for when you make the phone call. The unique story. I had this one guy. He told me one time. He said, "Oh yeah, my brother Ryan. He was the best man in all 3 of my weddings." So now when I call Ryan, and I bring that up on the phone, we say in the Delaney and Pritchett agency, business moves at the speed of
Trust.
Right. So when I bring that up on the phone, I'm establishing trust right away. Business is going to move faster. But you have to slow down to speed up when you're picking that referral up to qualify them to get that unique story and all that. Now, to put a bow on that, we're still in the home with Keith. I gotta say, hey Keith, can you do me a favor? Yeah, what's that, Tim? Hey, can you just give Ryan a call and let him know that I'm gonna be reaching out to him? Can you do that for me? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, because if I don't do that, how's that call gonna go, Keith?
Yeah,
it's not going to go very well.
Sales call.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not a telemarketer. What we do here is real, and we help people. And I want to make sure that I can help your brother now. So just definitely do that for me. You know what I'm going to do? I'm actually just going to shoot you a text. Can you just forward the text that I send to you to him?
Nice.
And the text says, hey, I sat down with this guy Tim. He helped me out with some benefits. He might be able to help you out. He's really busy. He's going to give you a call. When he gives you a call, definitely take a couple minutes just to talk to him. You'll thank me later. Now what that does is that's going to start a conversation between these two. I'm hoping Ryan looks at that text and says, what the hell is this? Let me call Keith. Keith, what's this nonsense you sent me? Oh, I just sat down with this guy, Tim, blah, 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 blah. He's going to call you. And when I call Ryan, he might say, hey, man, I spoke to my brother. I'm actually all taken care of. And it's like, boom, okay, good.
But if I'm sending your phone number in that text too? Like when you're sending that, like, hey, forward this text, is your phone number in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be a 607 number. I'll give the area code. I don't want to give the full number. I don't want to be too available.
Okay.
Right? So just give the first three. So now
it's a 305 number.
No. Actually, we haven't talked. I moved out of Miami.
What?
We haven't talked.
Okay, breaking news. Breaking news, Tim Penso's out of Miami.
A lady will do that to you, huh?
Okay, where'd you go?
I'm back in Boston.
All right.
Yeah.
Formerly of Boston to Miami, now formerly of Miami, back to Boston. Okay, well.
Stay tuned. You never know where I might be next.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be Miami or Boston.
He's buying a house in Denver.
Oh, yeah. I'm really liking Denver. I'm buying a condo. All right. So then when I call Ryan, if he says he's all set, that's fine. I got 4 more to go. I always gather 5 in a house. You want to put a lid on that. You only get 5, and you want to stick to that character for yourself because you don't want to break that. You want to make it. Your business has to be somewhat exclusive. So now when I say he gives me Ashton, I call Ashton. There's a strong chance that if he's giving me self-employed people, one of them's gonna be like, you know what? Yeah, I don't have anything in place, but yeah, hey, I'll do some homework. I'll see what I can do for you, and you just put them back in a qualifying state, and you book the appointment. Let them know you're gonna shop around, do some homework, see what you could gather, and then when you go into the appointment, it's a very similar approach. I'll start talking about Keith. So hey, how long you known Keith? Establish some credibility, some trust. Awesome. Well, hey, how much did he tell you about what he did for you? Not everybody always says not too much, but that's usually a lie from my experience. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, they know what he paid. They know his cash value. Yeah, not really, but you know what I mean. So that's really it. And then you just get into it like a normal appointment. You start doing a financial fire drill. You do a strong role and purpose. You always do your role and purpose. That's universal. Absolutely. It's fundamental across the board. And then you get right into it. And if they're meeting with you, we track the data for 120 days. We had 133% closing ratio on referrals.
Unbelievable.
Now, if you know the symmetry system, A lead to app count, that was 133%. Show ratio was just ridiculous. Yeah, because you're not gonna no show somebody that you respect, right? Like if there's respect between you and Keith. If he hooks you up with me, you're not gonna just blow that appointment off. You're less likely to do that. I'd rather call. What's that?
If someone doesn't understand like how we track close ratio, when you say I have 133%, I close more than 100% of the people I sit with. Like, what does that mean to have 133% close ratio?
Good question. So you get one A lead. An A lead is a brand new lead that the company generates. It costs them about between $70 and $100 to generate. I don't want to get too far in the weeds on that, but they track the close ratios on that because they want to put those leads into people's hands that are going to be generating applications on that from families. They want to make sure they're giving their investment to the right people, right, to double down on. Now, if you get 10 A leads in a week and you bring back 3 applications, you have you guessed it, 30% close ratio. Yeah. So we winded up getting over that because if I sat down with Ryan, and I think you have a daycare, right? You have like 4 or 5 kids, right? How many kids do you have? You have 2 kids? Oh, 2 kids. That's Edward. Edward's got 4. Edward's got 4.
Things up like there's 4 or 5 of them, but
so if I sat down with Ryan and I wrote 2 applications on him, 2 applications on his wife, that's 4 apps in 1 home.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I haven't even touched my 10 A leads that week, so I'm already at a 40% close ratio just on 1 referral. I still got to get in contact with my 10 A leads, so that's how you can go over to the 133% close ratio.
Amazing.
Man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. There's one more thing that I want you to touch on before we do that, though. I want to get with Keith. Same question. So you're getting a debt-free life client, super popular program. Somebody's like in love with it or whatever. They're saying you got to help my sister or something like that. Are you treating that just like it's another lead that came in? Are you treating that like you're recapping what you did for the sister, or like how are you approaching those conversations when you get a referral for debt-free life?
First of all, hashtag if you don't have proprietary software that does debt-free life, if you had a company that doesn't have that, come on over, right? Because we have the opportunity to match their debts with their cash value, and that makes selling this kind of thing so much easier. But ultimately, they always know, like Tim said, they always know, and with a debt-free life, it's a much bigger process in terms of a many-year-long relationship. So a lot of us will write a mortgage protection, a term policy, or a final expense, and there's not a whole lot of maintenance going on there. But with a much bigger process like a debt-free life that, does as much as a simple term product or more than any of them, there's a lot of maintenance. So they'll already have shared with the other person what they got, how it went, the process that went on, and that person is expecting the same process. And so I'm not going to share with them deep, intimate details of their person's financials unless they already know it. But I'm going to talk about the freedom that it provided for them. I'm going to talk about their future plans. I'm going to relate it to what plans they have. And they already know this info. And the original person already said something like, yeah, my wife, her sister's struggling, and they have this going on, and I know they've gotten into this, and they've lost money in the market. And so they've already given me enough artillery to sort of sandpaper the pain, which is really important in being able to help referrals, is having the courage to go there knowing I'm going to bring up their pain, right? I'm not just there to, be a vending machine and provide them the same solution. Every family's different.
It's interesting that you say that. I wanted to toss that to you, Tim. So what Keith just said was like, I'm not going to go into like, hey, they had this much debt, they had this many credit lines, this is the product we got. He's just going to go into the feeling. So when you're taking some of your referrals, are you telling them like, yeah, he got a $500,000 term policy for $250 a month? Or are you just saying, yeah, he protected the family, and yeah, we took care of that? Like, are you addressing what they bought or keeping that private?
I'm gonna keep it private and let them know. Like if they went with an ROP or something like that, I'm gonna say, hey, this is what your buddy did, right? This is what your brother did. He went with this program. Now, the opposite could happen too, because they could have had a heart attack 2 years ago.
Right.
Like, hey, what about my brother? He told me he got some return of premium. Now, hey, I hear where you're coming from on that, and I would love to have that program, but I can't even have that program with my rheumatoid arthritis. Now, the difference is everybody's situation is different, right? I'll still be able to help you, but we're just gonna have to get to we're gonna have to arrive at a solution just in a different way than we did him, because everybody's different. You guys aren't the same age. You don't have the same amount of kids. Mm-hmm. He's divorced. You're married. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Address that.
Keep it basic. Not like pin each other against each other.
Yeah. He got the best program.
You know
you
what,
wish
Ryan?
You could have that.
What people are not hearing, though, if they're not hearing this, is that it's not just a random approach, right? When you're looking at your approach or Tim's or mine or Ashton's, again, it's super scientific.
Well, Ashton's was
A little random. All right, yeah, I'll go over and get some Vietnamese
I just gotta
food.
wait for people to call me, and then I go to dinner with them, and I write a bunch of IULs for them.
100%.
But not unlike.
Don't be jealous. All right, it's good Vietnamese food. All right.
I wish it would fall from the sky like that.
Yeah, not unlike Edward and Brian and Ayers and Sicily, and the point that these folks have worked together and learned from each other. You make it sound so like generic and so laid back and so like simple, touchy-feely. We're going to do this, we're going to do this, but it's so super scientific.
Yeah, it's
right?
strategic.
It's strategic, and every part of it is logically thought out, right?
It's calculated.
What's going to happen next and what I want the outcome to be. And if you're sitting out there and you're learning about this stuff, notice how much people are calculated. That's such a great word, about every little thing that we do, every little detail. And that's why every little detail of that Ferrari meant so much to you,
Stitching,
right? Every little detail of selling it. I've seen you build homes online, and every little detail matters to you. And there are people out there going like, I didn't sell in that $1,000, and they're not paying attention to details.
Yeah. Right. And it comes with, and I think it really comes down to experience, right, and that strategy. And now, for people listening, you know, and if you're new to the industry, I've sent people recordings of appointments before, and I've had people respond back, like in the interviewing process, like, oh, I don't know if I could. It seems like a lot of math, and I'm like, hey, like, don't get it twisted. Like, this is not quantum physics. This is just a simple strategy that we're putting in place for a family, and that's what you have mentors for.
Yeah.
So last piece I want to get your opinion on, because Tim, before he came to the company that we're at now, worked for a company that required, or you were fired, him to do something that not a lot of agents do, which is an annual policy review, right? And so when you're like following up with clients, you got a client in the books, you already been paid, right? And that company sort of set up for you forced you into calling them, and it's something that I know you've kept doing, right? Since you've been over in an industry that's a little bit looser, let's say. So when you're going through annual policy reviews, or you're coaching an agent to like call through their book of business or whatnot, how are you generating referrals from that?
So at our old company, the way the thing, I don't know if you got it mixed up, I don't think you did, but one thing that we had to do was pick up 40 referrals a week, or we could get fired. That definitely. Now the annual policy reviews we still had to do, but they would give us, like, I could get a policy review of Ashton's, and they would allocate them in the office like that. Like, if say in the Pritchett agency, like, I can get one of your clients, and I could see the agent name, and it says Federico, and I see what they have, and then we had a script to just let them know that, hey, just giving you a call to review your starter program. Review what you did, see if any changes have happened over the last year, and give you some no-cost benefits for being a member with so-and-so company. All right, and then we'd book an appointment, and then we would start new agents on those to call, because it would get their confidence up. Right, the big, I booked one. It's like, yeah, man, well, they already got and we'd be like, yeah, nice job, you crushed that. And it's like, dude, they already bought the company, right? They already believe in the company. So, and like, that's what we started them on. And they were called POSs, policy of service. Right now, what you're thinking, viewers. And they were great programs, because now when you got in the home, my old mentor taught me, people buy you, they buy the company, and then they buy the product. They already bought the product in the company. So on your policy reviews, you just got to get them to rebuy you. So you go back in there, and I would say something like, hey, I'd be reviewing their file, and I'd sit there. And this is just such a kind of a cheesy technique they taught, but it actually worked. You'd be looking at the file, and you'd be like, that's weird. How come you're not on the policy? And you'd like look at the wife, and she'd be like, well, I don't know. And I'd be like, all right, we'll see if we can get that taken care of, but I'm just not sure if you're going to qualify. And I would just go right into options, and that would work like 95% of the time.
Wow.
Yeah, awesome. But you got to keep saying starter program. We're here to review your starter program today, just to build the urgency in doing business today.
Yeah. So what I heard from this, if you're an agent who's been producing for a little while, maybe you're going through a slump, you're going through a tough time, right? How do you build your confidence back up? How about you call your clients? How about you call the people who loved you and like believed in you and bought applications, right? And use some of this language. Starter program. Hey, we want to review this for you. I want to make sure that nothing's changed in your life. I'm just providing a service for you, right? Or whatever it is. Giving you any additional benefits that we have. Come up with an additional benefit. Sign them up for a prescription discount card. Do something. Hey, I want to get you guys enrolled in this. Let's take a look at your policy while we're here, right?
Quality member benefits going live this week.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not on Quality member benefits, sorry. But for those of you guys that are out there, if there's a will, there's a way. I don't want you to guys feel like just because we're at Symmetry and we love it here that like we're saying, oh, you have to come here to get everything. Where there's a will, there's a way, right? Like there's plenty of ways that you can build value out there. If you're with a company that you love, if you're captive, if you sell final expense, you do whatever, right? You need to build some confidence. Call some old clients, right? Rekindle those conversations. People that already love and trust you and believe in you. So, man, Tim, such an amazing, amazing guest to have, such value brought. If you guys weren't taking notes, play back this podcast. You can find us on all major podcast sources. Go to writemoreapps.com. Like and subscribe to this video. Put your little notifications on. Every time that we get new content, you'll get notified of it. But man, Tim, I can't thank you enough, brother, for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank all of you. Appreciate it.
Such value. Such value.